Okay, well, welcome everybody to this iteration of On Art. I am Chase Doherty, the curator of contemporary art here at the Delaware Contemporary, and I am joined here today by my lovely ladies from More Than a Woman. This exhibition is featuring art by Orly Cogan, Johanna Goodman, and Lauren Galban. So thank you all for joining us today in this conversation.
Thank you.
And
happy to be here.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start off by having everybody introduce themselves and talk a little bit about your practice. So Johanna, here, I'll start with you.
Okay, Johanna Goodman. I am primarily these days a collage artist. I have been a freelance artist and illustrator for about 30 years since I graduated from Parsons. And yeah, now I've sort of started doing a lot more personal work. A lot of, I still do commercial illustration, but I do a lot of collage work for a series that I've been working on for a few years called The Catalog of Imaginary Beings, which is the work in the show at the Delaware Contemporary. I don't know how much I should go into it, but it's an exhaustive, ongoing project. This week, I just hit 500 plates in the series. So maybe I should probably move on to something else, but I'm not. And that's about it.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. Lauren, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lauren Galban. I'm primarily a 3D artist, fiber artist. I just graduated last May of 2022 from Westchester University. So my art career has really just started. But I have been doing a lot of personal projects. Again, all fiber art, sewing, 3D sculptures, but I'm definitely still experimenting a lot and I'm enjoying where I'm going. So yeah, that's all about me.
Great. And then finally, Orly.
I'm Orly Cogan, and I'm known for being a fiber artist, although I do lots of different things. I studied painting in art school and do drawing and painting and collage and ceramics and lots. I actually work with lots of different medium, but sort of made a name for myself with fiber-based work. And my newer work, well, I do lots of things simultaneously and then sort of put things out there where it fits in. Very lately, I've been mixing fiber and ceramics together, but not that many people have seen that work because it's still very much still working it all out. So I'm not putting it out there yet, but sort of made my name in my elevator pitch is sort of like goes something like when people say, oh, what kind of artist are you? And it's impossible to tell them in like, a few seconds, especially describing something they've never seen before. But I say, oh, it's along the lines of contemporary figurative feminist fairy tales in thread. So that's
like that.
And they're like, sounds interesting. And I'm like, yeah, you can Google me and you'll figure it out. But and I've been doing all that for I don't know how long, since I graduated college in like 1994 or something like that. I was still doing painting a few years after that, but then I got into embroidery and other things just a few years after graduating art school.
Great. Well, I think that also leads us into my next question. So the exhibition is all, and your inclusion, as part of the exhibition was all about the feminine form and how you all are depicting that in a myriad of ways, all with very bright, beautiful colors, but the form itself takes very, so many shapes. So I would love to just talk a little bit about the actual subject matter and the content of what it is that you create. So Johanna, would you like to go first again?
Sure. So I mentioned that I have this, I made the catalog of imaginary beings, which was sort of a fictional compendium, like of Audubon's bird compendium, so it's sort of like these mostly women, there are men, but primarily women. Each one is like their own being or species. And I use the woman as the template to explore everything, pop culture and fashion and history and politics and my own personal way of interpreting what's going on in the world right now, what's going on at my stage of life. So I sort of have used the female figure as like a paper doll that I play with. And each one is sort of its own deep dive into whatever the subject matter of that one is. Some of them are more formal and explorations of abstraction and color, but a bunch of them are also about the female form and how it's seen. And it's usually, it's like my response to the male gaze, it's the female gaze, it's my gaze. It's introspective, and it's also about the way we see women and the way we are shown women all the time. And so I try to make my own world the way I want it to be. And the women are formidable and huge and kind of powerful and complicated. So yeah, that's sort of the beginning. And then I just keep, point of departure. And then I just keep offshooting from there.
Mm-hmm. I would love to hear a little bit more about the work that you've been working on, because now you're taking these imaginary beings and they're starting to move, right? You have kind of some movement that you're doing that digitally, which is really fascinating as well.
Yeah, that's also an experimental thing. I've done that a little bit of animating for some commercial work, but the ones you've seen are me just playing with these women and sort of having them, they're just short looping GIFs. But yeah, I really love that it gives them a little bit of life and they seem a little more alive. And yeah, that's something I'm sort of leaning into some more about my work and making it move. But I'm not sure how much I want to go down that route. I'm actually starting to do some more, I do a lot of digital work because it affords me the opportunity to use images from all over the world instead of just what's in my studio. But now I've been doing a lot of I'm using textiles, and I've always collaged photos I take of textiles, but now I'm sort of, I've jumped out of the computer screen digitally onto the sewing machine. And so I'm doing a lot of that and kind of allowing myself in the world to take up a little more space, because these figures that I make take up a lot of space, but I still don't. I still work in this box a lot of the time. So I've been sort of moving in that way even more than the animated digital way into making them, and some three-dimensional ones so they're standing up on their own. So I'm kind of going the other direction with them.
Going a little bit more analog. That sounds fascinating. I can't wait to see how that progresses.
Yes, you will.
Okay, great. Yeah. Lauren, how about you?
So I definitely take a more abstract approach to defining what a body is, including the female body. My works, I have balance, sag, and slump. They all depict different parts of the body, different characteristics that a body goes through, such as like depicting breasts, bellies, stretch mark, different like things that your body experiences through life. And my works are meant to be manipulated by the public, much like a body goes through experimentation, just throughout life, kind of acting as a canvas. So I related to the fact that bodies, you get tattoos, you get stretch marks, you get older, you sag, all these different things happen. And I wanted that to be depicted through my work. And by allowing the public to actually go in and interact with my pieces, it kind of showcases that natural change that happens through our bodies. And then also allowing the pieces themselves, as you touch them, they do look bold and fun and playful to touch. But then once you actually have the chance to lay your hands on them or pick them up and feel the weight of my pieces, you do start to get that vulnerability and sensitivity that the female form does have. So I'm combining that bold playfulness with that sensitivity and vulnerability into my pieces.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Mhm.
they are, yes. I mean, and I would encourage anybody who comes into the exhibit to touch them, because especially when you're talking about the weight of them, it's really a unique experience to be able to do that. So, okay, great. And Orly, if you just want to finish us off.
I want to just speak to 2 points of the 2 other artists for a moment. First thing, Johanna, you described your work so well, and especially in the beginning, I completely was like, I need to just encapsulate what you said and insert it into what I could say about my work. It really relates in so many ways, just subject matter wise, as far as like not as far as like portraying so much of your own head, how you feel about feminism, sexuality, aging, pop culture, the way women are seen, the way you see yourself, all the whole spiel you said, particularly in the beginning. I was like, yep, check, 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 check. That's how I am with so many of my pieces for so long. And so that was really interesting. And to be able to touch work, to like when I first saw at the exhibit people touching your work, I was like, oh, are they allowed to do that? And it was so fascinating when we spoke, when we met at the opening and we spoke to each other. You're like, yeah, it's all about, that's what it's about. It's about touching it and holding it. And when I did, it was such a different sensation. Like you say, at first they sort of look like playful because of the colors. But then when you hold them, you're like, is this okay? Am I supposed, because this feels familiar, like it's a bodily familiar feeling, but not the color and the style of it. So it's an interesting dichotomy. Like it's playful, but then when you're touching it, like if you couldn't see it, it would probably in your mind's eye look very different just from the feel of it. So anyway, I'm so happy to be in this show with both of you, and they all relate, but they're also different. So
Sure.
Great curating.
Oh, thank you. I have said this many times that this is one of my favorite shows that I've ever curated. It is, I love all of your work individually, but all of it together is so harmonious, and you hit so many great points that there are certain similarities, but very important differences in a really, really striking.
Yeah.
So yes. Orly, do you want to talk any more about kind of your work in
my own work?
Yeah.
Well, it started out as very small, thickly, densely embroidered, small figures of Lilliputians doing very like Bach-like things, so like Machiavellian, or like very whimsical, very mixing animals and people and mythology and little bits of our history and poetry in with found fabrics first, and then it grew into much bigger figures. They became almost the opposite in some ways. They moved into less dense and not filled in so much, less painterly with thread and more drawing with thread, and then more overlapping, over a long career. Even though they all relate to each other, one piece grows into another piece, and you make a bunch of similar pieces, and then they move to a different place. So the figures got bigger and got less dense and more transparent, like many layered of figures, giving notion of memory or how you look on the outside, but how you're feeling on the inside, or it's just the thread lent itself for me for so many emotional various ways of speaking that I didn't necessarily find with just straight on painting. And then all the history, I mean, the rich history of women's work. And I'm using lots of found, pieces that already were previously worked on for the home, beautifying the home, that I find later in like a tag sale. So just breathing new life into these vintage pieces that somebody put a lot of work and time and emotion and energy to, for something very particular and very personal, and it ended up anonymous and discarded. And so I feel like I'm salvaging that history and continuing on in that way of honoring the past, but continuing on into my view of women's history, women's, how the world turns through thread and through these materials, giving them a more important presence than they once had.
Yeah,
I just have one thing to say. Oh, sorry. Just in response to that, it's so interesting because it's also such a similarity that I find a lot of my images of the women, like the faces and the extremities, are from really old photos that are, out of copyright because they're so old. And so many of them are in these library collections where the women are just listed as anonymous woman.
Right.
And they're sort of not respected, especially more ethnic women in the pictures are not named, they're just anonymous. And it's the exact same feeling I have of like taking them and elevating them and breathing new life into them in a new way, which is just so interesting that you have that same thing happening in your work. Sorry, go on.
No, I was done.
Yeah.
I love to hear. For me, the one of the best things is listening to what other people have to say about my work. Like, I know how I feel about my work, and a lot of it really is so intuitive, and I kind of figure out how to talk about it after.
Mhm.
But hearing other people, what they get out of it, what they see, it feeds me, and then a lot of times it informs me about a piece that I wasn't necessarily thinking about it before. It gives me words or ideas. I prefer listening to other people talk about my work because it helps me build upon what I'm already working on in a different way. So yeah, so it's always nice to hear people's 2 cents about how they see somebody else's work, or what it reminds them of, or how it connects them to their own work, or whatever it is. So I was finished with what I was saying, but
yeah, no, I mean, and I think it's something that goes through all of our work a little bit, of elevating something that's feminine and seeing or breathing new life into something like shapes and feelings of the body and everything, taking something and processing it through us. And a lot of that, it's about women's bodies or women's work. So I think it's something interesting, that kind of a commonality that runs through all of our work.
Yeah, I would agree in the best way, Well, so lastly, I just want to kind of hear about what is next for you all after the close of this exhibition. And if there's anything exciting and new things that we should have our viewers. I mean, I'm going to be watching your careers because I love all of your work so much. But just for people to kind of see where you're headed next, or even something you're experimenting with, which I know that some of you also talked about, but I'd love to hear what's exciting you right now. Johanna, do you want to start?
Okay. I feel like I'm monopolizing. And basically, I think I kind of discussed that I'm pivoting a little bit and doing some more sewing and working with textiles and working bigger. And it's kind of a leap for me because because I have one foot in the commercial world, I'm always making something with the idea of the paycheck attached to it at the end, or like doing something that's for communicating a specific purpose. And now I am pivoting to doing something that's just, I need to get out of my body onto the work. So it is a leap of faith of just kind of investing some time and faith in my vision and sort of the process and seeing what happens. And I'm sure it will cross-fertilize the other work. I really like doing both the personal and the commercial work because I feel like they each inform each other in ways you wouldn't expect. So yeah, I just did some artwork. I'm in the process now for a band in Japan. So that'll be an album cover and some animated stuff too, since you brought that up. Which I'll be posting. And that's, I'd say that's what's happening right now.
That's great. Yes, Lauren.
Like I said earlier, a lot of experimentation is still taking place. But I'm definitely still working with textile, and I don't think I have fully explored the idea of the body and female form through my sculptures yet. So I'm still working on exploring that and creating sculptures based around that. I have started a wall hanging piece and then other just larger installation pieces. I still am exploring different fillings I use for the fabric, and I'm also looking at different fabric materials and textiles to get different textures and feelings. I'm still hoping to create works that can be touched and played with, but that just goes along with whatever happens throughout the process, if it's capable of being touched and played with. I get a lot of my inspiration just from like things around me. So new ideas are always sparking. The other day, a bath towel fell off the hook and fell in and landed in a way where it created all these beautiful drapes and folds. And so I immediately took a picture of that. And it just reminded me so much of the body and human form. So just like playing with different things I see that you wouldn't initially expect and trying to create that in my work.
That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. I also too, this is potentially a hard right, but I don't know, Lauren, if you have a plushie close by you, but to show
I want to see
Johanna and Orly these plushies that you make that are also very fun.
The plushies are they're very far from like the fine art
Okay.
world. They're more just like cute characters, but I can go grab one and bring it over if you'd like.
Maybe after the interview, if you send us a photo, because just so that they can, they're really fun. Okay, great. And Orly, what is next for you?
I have a few things I can plug that are coming up.
Yeah, please do. Yes.
Let's see, May 13th is the opening of a solo show I'm having at a museum called the Museum of Art and Art History in Lancaster, California. It's a suburb of LA that I'm very excited about. And I have very big embroideries in there. And it will be up, I think, through the end of August. So hopefully people will get out there and see it, or at some point when the show's up on their website and all that, you can see it online. I'm flying out there with my daughter for the Mother's Day opening, which will be fun. It's a long trip just to go for a weekend, but we're excited to go. And I had the walls painted, which is a really fun, because my work is the colors are very like pastel and kind of soft and gentle, even though the what I'm saying in it might not be, but the palette is. And so I realized with this show, when the color wall is a bright color, the work really pops even more. So I'm just excited to go see the installation out there in California.
What
And then
color are the walls? Are they all one color or different ones?
there were different colors. I have a big, very big piece that was originally a vintage tablecloth. So it's mostly lace, like crocheted lace. And then where it's not crocheted lace, I've done painting and embroidery in it. And that one particularly pops because it's on against a dark blue wall. So everywhere that the lace is, there's that bright blue.
Yeah.
Through. So yeah. And then in September, I have a commercial show happening, which I'm so excited about, because it's finally an opportunity to try to sell some work. Museum shows are wonderful, getting the word out there, but to actually sell some work, you need commercial galleries. So there's a show in Asheville called Tracy Morgan that's giving me a solo show in September 8th that opens. So this summer I'll be working towards that. So those are just two exhibitions coming up. But as far as my own process, I've been doing all sorts of things lately, more sculptural with fiber-based work and with ceramics, and kind of getting away from the figure as we know it, and a little bit more abstracted, which is kind of liberating in a way, because the way I make work, I do the figure very accurately. Like I studied in Italy in a very formal way, and following like old master style drawing. And so doing more abstracted works and being a little looser with how I'm drawing with thread and is very liberating in a way. And also I'm getting more abstract with my imagery, even when it does look like what it is. I'm feeling a little looser about what my story is, keeping it more ambiguous and more dreamlike, and feeling a little less pressure to have to like make the story so obvious, because I don't know, I want to do certain imagery and that it doesn't necessarily make sense that they go together to the outside viewer, but in my mind it must connect in some way. And I guess I just doing this for at some point in your career, you just feel like, I'm feeling much more courageous. I'll even like work on something for hours and hours, and then decide I'm going to cut it in half and put it on something else. Like I just feel like there's a time right now that I'm really being very courageous with what I'm doing with my work experimentally, and also just taking old works and going back into them, or cutting them apart and making them into something new, like a real. I have so many materials for so many years that I'm just getting more like putting things, like getting, I don't know how to explain it, but more aggressive with being less precious about it, I guess. And that's exciting.
That is exciting. It sounds like everybody has really exciting things coming up. So I can't wait to see what it all comes about. But I just want to say thank you to you all. Thank you for being a part of the exhibition. It's really been such a joy to get to know each one of you. And I hope that we can work again in the future. And I can't wait to see what happens for all of your careers. So it's been great.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
thank you for putting together such a great show.
Oh, thank you. It was seriously my absolute pleasure. And thank you all for being here today. This was a really fascinating conversation, and I love hearing more about your work. So, thank you.